Today I want to talk about dropped D tuning. You've probably heard that term used before. I want to teach this concept to you and make sure that you can get in and out of dropped D tuning on your own, and explain why it's such a cool tuning and how it can be used. But before I go there, I want to talk about the E chord. The E chord, as you probably already know, is just a great sounding chord because it just sounds so good on the guitar. It's a great big fat sounding chord, and it just rings on the guitar so beautifully. And largely the reason for that is because you've got this low E. You know, that nice low E in the lowest voice or in the bass. But here's the deal: if you go to another key, let's say we want to play in the key of D, my root of the D chord in this case, or the naming note of this D chord is this D note, and that's nowhere near as low as this E note, right? So I don't have that real power and harmonic strength in the D chord as I do in the E chord, simply because my root of the chord of D is way up here on the 4th string. All right. So how do we change that? How do we make D, the key of D, sound with the same authority, as the key of E, right? Best way to do it is to take that low E string and turn it into a low D instead. And that's what we're going to look at now. We're going to drop this low E and drop it to D. So the question is, how do we do that? Here's a D open 4th string. Here's an E open 6th string. We want to take that E and make it an octave below this D. In order to do that, we have to go lower, right? And let's do that. You're going to probably want to do this with your ear at home, right? So you can see how low I'm going. There's my octave, and there's my drop D. Now let's come back up to the E. Now if you want to come back up, maybe just go to the high E here. And you can probably hear that, right? When it gets to pretty close to this high E, I mean that's 2 whole octaves apart, but still it gives you a reference point to get back to E. Now let's go back down to D. Let's see how far I actually turn the peg. I don't even go 1 full revolution of the peg. So that's sort of in order to give you a bit of a frame of reference, right? It's not all that far. Now, if you have a digital tuner, that would be, I happen to have one up here on my headstock, and they're great, these little clip-on tuners, because they give you an immediate frame of reference. But you should be able to get in and out of this with your ear. Now, here I am in drop D tuning. Check out what happens to my D chord. My D chord was, and now is. Now all of a sudden it has that same oomph that the E chord did. Right? Great sound, really big fat sound. But now we're no longer in regular tuning. We're no longer in the tuning that is regular tuning for guitar. We are in an alternate tuning. This is probably the simplest. It is the simplest alternate tuning of all, and it's going to create some challenges if you want to change to other chords. So let's take a look at a G chord. If I normally finger my G chord, like the one finger G chord, here it is. If I normally finger it down here, this is no longer a G down here, right? It's now an F. In order to make it at this fret, in order to make it a G, I'd have to move to here. Now I've got a G chord, right? A nice one finger G chord. I mute this here. Let's go from D, drop D. Change to G. All right, so that's a nice little change on its own. There's lots of variations of that, of course, but I'm just trying to give you a place to start, right? And let's go to the A chord as well, being the 5 chord in the key of D. D, E, F, G, A. D, E, F, G, 1, 2, 3, 4 is the 4 chord. D, E, F, G, A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is the 5 chord. And here is my 5 chord, A. And in this case, no big deal. I'm just going to completely avoid the 6th string because I've got that in an alternate tuning. That low note does not belong in the chord of A, right? So how about a 1, 4, 5 chord progression with the drop D tuning? There's my 4 chord, 5 chord, big D. G. A. All right. So that gives you an idea of the drop D tuning with just open position chords, and I would suggest you sort of work on those and play around with that a little bit. Drop D tuning is also really cool when it comes to using the capo, because you can use these nice big fat sounding chords, well, especially in the case of the D, but you can begin to move them up the fretboard a little bit just by placing the capo. Another benefit to the drop D tuning. And but finally, especially for you out there who are playing electric, what ends up happening with the drop D tuning is on the bottom 3 strings, you now have a power chord. That means a chord that doesn't have a 3rd in it. So in this case, you've got a D, an A, and another D. If you just chop out these bottom 3 strings, so you can. Now all of a sudden you've got this really fat sounding power chord that only requires a one finger, a barred one finger, and because of that you can get around these chords pretty quickly. You get the idea, and well, that's obviously a fairly electric sound. We're not, yeah. You can try it on your electric. It sounds a little weird on the acoustic. You get the idea. And it's naturally that's going to work at any fret as well. So with drop D tuning, you've also got those great big sounding power chords down on the bottom 3 strings. So not only is drop D tuning really a neat tuning for just open position acoustic playing, but it's also a really nice nice tuning for using with a capo, and it's a killer tuning for using on your electric. By dropping that D, you end up with 1-finger power chords that you can change super fast on those bottom 3 strings. You should be able to get in and out of this tuning by ear. So in order for me to get back to my regular tuning now, I just reference my high E. And I should be back to that low E in my tuning and regular tuning. So try that drop D tuning, alternate tuning, the first most common of all alternate tunings, with a lot of great opportunities for new stuff.